Morning, all, and welcome to your Tuesday, August 11th. And we're going to do just a news of the day video before we get into hockey in a little over 2 hours. And I'm going to be doing, so for people who watched during the play-ins, I'm going to be doing most of the previews on the morning of the games. We're going to, have the news and the previews together. I did the preview for today's games yesterday because I, like others, kind of chomping at the bit to get round one started and see how things turn out. But going forward, I should be able to most days, except on weekends, I'll have to do the preview the night before, but get that all figured out. I also want to just take a pause here to thank everybody who have helped with the recent explosive growth on the channel, as in terms of both subscriber numbers, view counts, and all of that. Getting this channel to trending on YouTube. That's not from me, that's from you guys. So thank you so much for that, and let's see how far this can go, because the playoffs officially start today, and we're still talking about stuff that happened in the play-ins and the whole draft and everything. Oh, and people expecting the mock draft, I'm gonna have to wait until next week to actually figure out the mock draft, because there's still a pick left to be decided in the top 15. Let's go to the news. Mark Scheifele does not believe that Matthew Tkachuk had malicious intent in the hit. Remember a long time ago where Matthew Tkachuk took out Scheifele? A, it's not his Achilles. B, he says he'll be 100% healthy whenever we get to next season, whatever that is. I think they'll be able to do it in early December. Again, I think what we're seeing right now is kind of how we're going to see things come December. And it'll be a modified version, but I think we'll see something like this again. But yeah, he says he doesn't see the malicious intent. Again, Paul Maurice, obviously, very emotional after that, very upset after that, rightfully so. And I get why he was upset and mad and everything, but I didn't see the malicious intent with that either. And, we'll see if Tkachuk ends up on the radar of Dallas Stars fans as quickly as he did with Jets fans in the series between those two teams. My guess is probably, yeah. I mean, it's part of his game, playing physical hockey and being right on that edge, but I didn't see the malicious intent in that either. He felt terrible about it at the time, so if it was malicious intent, I don't understand why he'd feel terrible about it right after. But yeah, so I'm glad Scheifele's going to be 100% okay, and I'll take it from him. All right. Dougie Hamilton is going to play today against Boston. One major missing defenseman they had against the Rangers. He didn't play at all, and yet they still swept the Rangers. So having Dougie Hamilton back will make them stronger. Oh, and Dougie Hamilton played for the Boston Bruins as well. So he has some extra motivation against Boston. There are numerous storylines in this year's round one which involve players against former teams, and that's one of the more interesting ones to me. Because again, when he left Boston, goes to Calgary, you had the feeling that there was kind of an acrimonious breakup there, where he wanted a certain amount of money, and Boston went, no, we're not doing that. So yeah, Hamilton, not one of those guys willing to take a lot less money to stay in Boston, as many players in Boston are willing to do, and he may very well show up for Carolina in this series with the mentality of making Boston regret not keeping him around. Bill Guerin came out yesterday and stated that he wants an upgrade in net. But he also threw in that he thought Stalock had a good year, but he didn't pull any punches on Dubnyk. And I can't say that Dubnyk had a good year, because that would not be accurate. Devin Dubnyk's time in Minnesota is probably done. But this has also caused people in mock drafts to start saying, oh, so Minnesota's going to take Askarov in the first round. Askarov's going to be an excellent goaltender in the NHL. It's possible Minnesota takes Askarov. However, I think he's looking at a more immediate upgrade in net. And I think while it would be great to go into the draft and pick up a goaltender, I also think they need some forward help. And he may look to free agency for a goaltender, because he wants somebody who can jump in right now. And if you're going to draft a kid out of Russia, odds are he's probably not ready to go for next season. And Guerin wants some kind of a change immediately here. I would think he wants Stalock to return to the status of being the backup goaltender and have an upgrade in the starter position. Again, I don't think a draft pick necessarily does that. It might. I'm not saying he won't. I'm not saying Askarov's going to get passed on by Minnesota. I'm just saying it's quite possible they're going to be active in the offseason looking for an upgrade in net. Tom Wilson has said that players feel pretty safe and things are pretty normal inside the bubbles. And he says the NHL is doing a great job of making sure life feels as normal as possible. And, I have to say hats off to the NHL that we're, 2 weeks into the bubble environment and things still feel normal when you're watching it on TV, other than the fact that there aren't fans in attendance, which I know there are still people saying, well, without fans, I'm not going to watch. All right, well, it's probably going to be a while for most North American sports before fans are in attendance. And I have to say the NHL's done a pretty good job, and I don't have any reason to think Tom Wilson's not telling the truth. And yes, David Pastrnak did tweet out that Tom Wilson was the best goal scorer in the NHL because he lost a bet. Pasta lost a bet with Tom Wilson and had to post it. So for anybody who's still wondering about that, yep, that was a bet that he lost. And honestly, I think things are going to get easier for both the NHL and its players now that 8 teams have been eliminated, and we're about a week and a half away from 8 more being eliminated. Well, 2 weeks away from 8 more being eliminated. It's going to be a busy couple of months here, but they're doing their best to get it done, and I have to say hats off to their safety. All right, Pittsburgh. So that one draft pick I talked about at the start of the video, it's Pittsburgh's. Pittsburgh now has 7 days to decide, now that the draft lottery's done, whether to keep their 2020 pick and trade the 2021 pick to Minnesota or not. And here's the thing. There's a danger in saying, all right, well, we'll just keep this one because it's outside of the playoff spot and we'll trade you next year's. Next year's wouldn't be lottery protected. And it's the same reason I'm glad Vancouver technically makes the playoffs now and that draft pick goes to New Jersey. Because, honestly, there's no safety net for some of these teams for next year. Carolina gets the number 13 pick from Toronto this year in exchange for getting rid of the Patrick Marleau contract. And the interesting thing too was I remember at the time of that trade, and I said that's a really steep price Toronto's paying to get rid of the Marleau contract. And their relief fans saying, well, it'll be in the mid-20s. It's going to be a draft pick in the mid-20s. It's not a big deal. It's number 13. That in a deep draft, that is a big deal. A team that could use, say, a Schneider or Gooley, maybe Sanderson falls to that level. Probably not, but just say Sanderson falls to that level. They could use a defenseman like that in Toronto. And now Carolina is in a position to pick up another good player at 13 because they were able to take the Marleau contract and buy it out. And for Pittsburgh, this is kind of where you're getting to that stage of your window's probably closed now. And I hate that terminology, but I'm using it here just for this purpose. And you don't want to risk the 2021 pick being pretty darn good. So I think they probably just hand off this pick to Minnesota. But they have 7 days to make that decision. They could decide today, they could decide tomorrow. But they have 7 days to make that decision. Going into tomorrow's series with Colorado, we don't know if Nick Schmaltz is going to play or not. He's on a list of many players that we're curious to see whether they're going to play or not. But Schmaltz's status is still unknown. And Arizona did it without him, just like Carolina did it without Dougie Hamilton. And that's really impressive. I do think that if Schmaltz comes back, that's a big kick for Arizona. And while we're talking about players playing against former teams, how about Carl Soderberg playing against the Colorado Avalanche? So again, there's going to be a lot of those storylines. Look forward to hearing about that a lot from probably Pierre Maguire and others. And where they went to school and what they ate for breakfast that morning and all that wonderful stuff. I do wonder with Pierre sometimes. Anyways, all right, and I also wanted to throw in here at the end of this, I mentioned this on the Entertainment Guy channel yesterday because I was excited to do an Entertainment Guy video, so I threw that out there because I was like, I haven't done one of these in over a week. Happy retirement to Bob McKenzie. He's made it official. He is, I think it's being called a soft retirement. It's not like he's going to stop tweeting or stop being an insider, but he's retiring from his position as the TSN insider. Bob McKenzie has done a masterful job for a very long time of being a Toronto media member, and yet we don't think of him that way. At least I don't. And I haven't seen a lot of complaints about bias with McKenzie or any of his reporting. And he's always been very, very fair. So I do kind of look forward to, if he's retired, seeing him wearing gear of, say, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I assume he cheers for. But again, he keeps it so close to the vest that if somebody came out and said, actually, he's a Sens fan, it wouldn't surprise me. Because again, he does keep that pretty close to the vest, and did a very good job for a long time. Some of the stuff that he did, I viewed as a template when this channel started going towards hockey. Between he and Elliot Friedman, there's a level of professionalism and competence that I see there that is fantastic. So I wish him all the best, and it is insane to think he's been doing it for 40 years. But for me, it's still weird that I've been doing this for 4 years and full time for 2.5. So that's bizarre to me, and I don't take any of that for granted. As I said, the channel's growth and everything, just really humbling. And all the best to Bob McKenzie. And I wanted to throw in at the end of this, if you haven't submitted your bracket, you have until, I think it's noon today, in Pacific Standard Time, or Pacific Daylight Time. Sorry, if you're still on Standard Time, you're way off. You're like an hour off everybody else, unless you're in the region that doesn't change the time. So you guys are weird. You don't ever have to change your clocks. I'm so envious of that. But you have until 3:00 Eastern to submit your bracket. I will leave the link in the description to this video again, the Hockey Guy bracket, which is over 4,000 right now, which is getting into just crazy regions. But hey, we'll post that here. We'll see how large that gets. And of course, my wife's working on figuring out, we're going to do prizes for the top 3 winners at the end of the playoffs, and go from there. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. And hockey starts in roughly 2 hours. That's going to be fun to watch. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you have not already. And hey, I will talk to you again soon.